The scream came first, sharp and short, cutting through the quiet of the woods like a snapped branch, and when Rowan Hale reached the fallen log he saw blood darkening the moss and a woman's hand trembling against the earth as if it no longer belonged to her. Rowan stood frozen for a breath too long, his chest tightening with the old familiar panic that always rose when life demanded more than he thought he had left to give. He was supposed to be collecting firewood before his daughter woke from her nap at the cabin. He was supposed to be invisible to the world, just a single father trying to survive quietly. Instead, the forest had placed a broken stranger in his path, and the look in her eyes was not fear alone but shock, pride, and something dangerously close to disbelief. Her pale blouse was torn, her leg twisted beneath her, and sunlight filtered through the trees as if mocking the moment with its warmth. If this story of broken Smill already makes you believe that even the darkest moments can hide hope, take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps stories of compassion and second chances alive. Rowan's life had been shaped by emergencies he could never fix. 5 years earlier, his wife had slipped away in a hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and loss, leaving him with a newborn and a silence that followed him everywhere. Since then, he had learned how to move through the world with careful steps, how to pack lunches, soothe nightmares, and swallow his own grief so it did not spill onto his child. The woods had become his refuge because trees did not ask questions, and birds did not care that his dreams were smaller now. Yet standing there, looking at the injured woman, he felt that familiar fracture in his chest, the fear that whatever he touched would only break further. The woman on the forest floor was Aurora Vance, though Rowan did not know her name yet. She was known to the world as a titan of industry, a billionaire who built empires from sharp instincts and relentless will. But stripped of her tailored suits and armored confidence, she looked smaller, almost fragile, her phone clenched uselessly in her hand with no signal to save her. Earlier that morning, she had stormed into the woods to escape a boardroom betrayal that threatened to steal everything she had built. She had walked faster and farther than intended, rage blinding her to the uneven ground, until one wrong step sent her tumbling down the slope. Power meant nothing when bones failed. Rowan moved closer, his boots sinking softly into moss, and knelt beside her. He noticed the way she tried to straighten her spine despite the pain, the instinctive refusal to appear weak. He noticed the way her breathing hitched when she shifted, the blood soaking into the green earth. His hands hovered, uncertain, because touching another person still felt dangerous to him, like crossing a line he had sworn never to approach again. But his daughter's face flashed in his mind, the way she trusted him completely, and something steadied inside him. He tore a strip from his flannel, wrapping it gently around the wound, his movements slow and deliberate. He spoke to her, not with dramatic promises or reassurances, but with the simple honesty of a man who had learned that survival often came down to small truths. He told her she was not alone, that pain did not mean the end, and that sometimes being found was more important than being strong. The word surprised even him, because he realized he was saying them as much for himself as for her. Aurora listened, her eyes tracking his face, trying to reconcile the calm presence before her with the chaos inside her own mind. She had spent years believing that control was the only safety, that dependence was weakness. Yet here was a stranger with dirt on his hands and grief in his eyes, offering help without expectation. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to lean into stillness, to let someone else take responsibility for what came next. Rowan knew he could not leave her there. The path back to the cabin was long and uneven, and carrying her would test his strength in ways he had not tested since the night he carried his wife into the emergency room, praying for a miracle that never came. As he lifted Aurora carefully, her weight pressed into old memories, his muscles burning not just from effort but from emotion. Each step felt like a negotiation with the past, a reminder that he had survived loss once and could survive this moment too. The cabin appeared through the trees like a promise. Sunlight spilled across its wooden porch, and Rowan felt his breath catch when he heard a small laugh drift from inside. His daughter, Mira, was awake. The sound anchored him, reminding him why he kept going even when life felt impossibly heavy. Inside, he laid Aurora on the couch, the room filled with the smell of pine and warmth. Mira peeked around the corner, her eyes wide, and Rowan saw curiosity rather than fear in her gaze. Children, he realized, often understood compassion better than adults. As the hours passed, the tension in the room shifted. Rowan cleaned the wound, stabilized the injury, and waited for help to arrive, using the cabin's old radio to send a call that felt like shouting into the void. Aurora watched him move with quiet efficiency, noticing the way his focus never wavered, the way his gentleness extended to his daughter without effort. Something inside her, hardened by years of competition and betrayal, began to soften. She saw in him a strength she had never learned how to cultivate, one born not from dominance but from devotion. Rowan, in turn, felt something unfamiliar stirring beneath his exhaustion. It was not attraction in the way he once knew it, but recognition. He saw in Aurora a mirror of his own brokenness, a person who had climbed high only to fall harder, who had learned the cost of isolation too late. When she asked about his life, he shared fragments without dramatics, letting the truth exist as it was. He spoke of love lost, of nights spent holding a crying baby while his own heart shattered, of learning that survival could be an act of quiet bravery. The ambulance arrived as the sun dipped lower, painting the woods in gold. As paramedics lifted Aurora onto a stretcher, she reached for Rowan's hand, her grip firm despite the pain. In that moment, something changed for both of them. She realized that power did not always mean standing alone, and he realized that his capacity to care had not been exhausted by loss. Sometimes, he understood, healing arrived disguised as responsibility. Near the end of this journey, if this story has touched something real inside you, please support Broken Smill by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your belief keeps these moments alive. Before the final moments unfold, take a second to comment below and share what this story made you feel. Weeks later, the woods looked the same, but Rowan felt different walking their paths. Aurora had recovered, her leg healing, her life altered in ways she was still learning to accept. She returned not as a billionaire seeking escape but as a woman seeking grounding, visiting the cabin with gratitude rather than entitlement. She helped quietly, listened more than she spoke, and learned Myra's laughter was worth more than any stock price. Rowan watched her integrate into their simple rhythms, not as a savior or a solution, but as someone willing to stand beside him. The forest had brought them together through pain, but it was choice that kept them connected. Rowan did not suddenly become fearless, and Aurora did not abandon her ambitions, yet both learned that strength could coexist with vulnerability. In the end, what Rowan said in the woods was simple and unremarkable, yet it shifted everything. He reminded a woman who had everything that being seen mattered, and in doing so, he reminded himself that his heart was still capable of opening. As sunlight filtered through the trees once more, their lives moved forward not as a fairy tale, but as something far more powerful, a quiet testament to hope, compassion, and the unexpected beauty of second chances.